Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, I had a voice for radio. So today, I'm going to be showing you how Gallade got top 8 at the Valencia Special Premier event, piloted by Jimmy Voigt. Now, what's interesting is that this was the first tournament of the new season. So even though the World Championships hasn't happened yet, essentially as we get to a certain point in the season, Pokemon draws a line under it and goes, right, you can no longer get points for Worlds 2018, but now you can all go and have a bit of fun trying to gain points for Worlds 2019. This was the first opportunity for people to go and get points for next season. And not only did Jimmy Voigt turn up with a Gallade deck, he actually went and got top 8 and earned himself a fair few points towards his Worlds qualification in 2019. Now, we're used to seeing Gardevoir and Gallade coming along as a little bit of a pair. Gardevoir is this big giant GX that can take big giant KOs, take a hit from almost anything and accelerate energy, and Gallade sitting there with a premonition ability, doing a bit of extra damage, being a nice counter for Zoroark, and just generally being a nice little support Pokemon. Ladies and gentlemen, Jimmy did not agree. So if we have a quick look, we have got 150 HP, which on a non-GX, meaning your opponent can't use Choice Band, is actually really good. Very hard to KO. Now, it is weak to Psychic, which is the same weakness as Buzzwole, so people will be playing a whole bunch of stuff like Mew from Fates Collide to counter Buzzwole, and will end up countering this. And although you're only giving up one prize, it is a stage 2, so if you play too much Psychic, you might struggle to really stream those stage 2s, although we've got a way to do that, more on that in a moment. Then you add in the attack. For just a double colourless energy, you do 130 damage if you've played a supporter this turn. You will have played a supporter this turn, because we play supporters every turn. It's not exactly some huge stretch to imagine you'll have played a supporter. So you do 130 for a double colourless energy, and as previously mentioned, you get to counter Zoroark. Zoroark, ladies and gentlemen, is a very big deck right about now. If we have a look at the Special Premier event in Valencia, if we have a look at the top 8, we see that Zoroark came in 1st place, 3rd place, 4th place, 6th place, and 8th place. 5 of the top 8 decks were Zoroark decks. Now, to be fair, 3 of them were with Garbodor, and Garbodor does give a nice counter against Gallade. So, put it simply, if they're not playing something like Garbodor, you should have a fairly easy time. If they are, it's going to be more difficult, but you're still trading 1 for 1. You're still one-hit KOing Garbodor, so if you can get away without playing too many items, you'll be fine. Then, of course, and this was a deck that people mooted right around when Breakthrough came out, you play Octillery. And Octillery lets you draw until you got 5 cards in hand, and Octillery Gallade was one of the decks that people were hyping when Breakthrough came out. It seems so simple. You use Gallade to rearrange the top 5 cards of your deck, Octillery to draw them. So even if you're only drawing 2 cards of Octillery, you can make sure they are the best 2 cards from your top 5 by virtue of having used Gallade's Premonition ability. And this is how you get these stage 2s out. As soon as you've got 1 Gallade and 1 Octillery out, you should then be able to start getting rolling and getting more and more Gallade out, because you can draw cards using Octillery, you can make sure you're drawing the right ones using Gallade, and you've got yourself a really good draw engine. Maybe the first Gallade will be a bit of a pain, but once you've got that, you'll be rolling. And do remember that if you get yourself an Octillery, that will help the first Gallade as well. General rule with decks like this, you evolve the Octillery first, so then you can go and get yourself a Gallade. Obviously, if you end up with a rare Candy Gallade in hand, you do that. But generally speaking, you get Octillery first, because that's going to help you get rolling. Now, in terms of other Pokemon here, we do obviously see a couple copies of Tapu Lele. Of course we do. It helps you search out your supporters when you need them. It's pretty gosh darned important. We see 1 copy of Latios from Shining Legends. Put simply, this is an early game attacker. It uses double colourless energy, just like Gallade does. And it does 30 to the active, 30 to 1 of the bench. You use this to spread a bit of damage around. If you're not hitting for weakness, then 130 with Gallade can be a little bit low. But you hit something like a Buzzwole with this, and then add a Choice Band to Gallade, and in total you're doing 190, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is the one-hit KO. So Gallade here, it's really nice to combine it with Latios just to do that little bit of extra damage. Gallade generally does almost enough. Latios comes along and goes, I got your back, boy. We're going to make this work. And then we see a 1-1 Zoroark line. Now, you're already playing double colorless energy, so that's okay. But also here, it gives you a couple of things. As a minor point, it gives you an answer to something like Dawn Wings Necrozma, which is weak. And, you can always goose that up as soon as it hits the field and get a cheeky 2 prizes. But more importantly, it's here for Garbodor. I just mentioned how Garbodor was a bit of an issue. This gets a one-hit KO on Garbodor, assuming you've got a full bench. It means you don't have to run around with item cards like Rare Candy, and it's got 210 HP and resistance. It's actually really quite funky to be able to use it here, and I do think it's a good counter. It's not just for Garbodor, but that's clearly the main use for it here. And then, of course, we've got one Diancie Prism Star to add 20 damage. And then we've got one Regirock EX to add an extra 10 damage. Again, I keep telling you, you're not doing quite enough damage. 130 plus a Choice Band 160 plus a Diancie 180 plus a Regirock EX 190, stuff like Buzzwole going down. And between Latios spreading a bunch of damage and Regirock EX and Diancie Prism Star, you should here be able to get up to the numbers. It's something with which Gallade struggles, so you build a deck to take advantage. In terms of energy, you're just playing 4 double colorless, that's all you want. All your attack is even Tapu Lele. Just use double colorless. In terms of support account here, we see 4 Cynthia, 4 N, 2 Professor Sycamore. It's higher on shuffle draw than it is discarding, because you're going to need the Rare Candy Gallade combination, so you don't really want to be using Sycamore too aggressively here. We play 3 copies of Guzma because you need to be able to drag Pokemon off the bench and KO them. That's what decks do nowadays. 2 copies of Bridget because you don't want one to be prized. Grabbing 3 basics on turn 1 is way too important. You need your turn 2 Octillery. You need your turn 2 Gallade. You need these rolling because they ain't basic Pokemon, ladies and gentlemen. We see 4 copies of Rare Candy here and 4 copies of Ultra Ball. Ultra Ball to search out all of your Pokemon, and Rare Candy because, it's kind of important here to get that stage 2 rolling. We see 2 copies of Mysterious Treasure here. Now, partly this is so you can get Latios, and partly it's so you can get Tapu Lele. But we also play Psychic Routes, and we play Psychic Kirlia here. And the reason is so that we can go and get them with Mysterious Treasure. Does mean you're a little bit more vulnerable to Espeon. Espeon GX will get an easy one-hit KO on routes here. But to be blunt, this gives you extra consistency. Yeah, there's going to be the very occasional game where an Espeon comes and KOs one turn 1. But generally speaking here, the extra consistency of having Mysterious Treasure to search out your routes and Kirlia, as well as your Tapu Lele, is going to be worth the slightly increased risk. 2 copies of Field Blower because Garbodor here is a bit of an issue. Because you really, really don't want abilities turned off because of the whole Gallade Octillery thing, plus Diancie Prism Star, plus Regirock. You need your abilities, ladies and gentlemen. It also gets rid of stuff like Floatstone, but really here, it's getting rid of tools from Garbodor so that you can get your abilities back. We see 1 Timeable. Flip 2 coins, 1 evolution for each heads. I mentioned in a previous video, I'll pop a link in the description, that this actually saw quite a bit of play at North American Internationals. Yeah, it's a flippy card, but given that you need the early Octillery and you need the early Gallade, it's a risk worth taking here. 1 Rescue Stretcher to go and get your Pokemon back. 1 special charge because you're only playing double colorless, you need to be able to recover it. 3 Choice Band to do a bunch of extra damage, and I showed you with the sums earlier, doing extra damage with Choice Band is important here. And then 2 copies of Floatstone because people are going to want to strand your Octillery in the active. Galade's got a retreat cost of 2, and Octillery's got a retreat cost of 2, and you don't have nice, easy retreaters here, and that means you have to play Floatstone. I was very surprised. I should say, of course, that the deck list on screen right now does come from the lovely folks at LimitlessTCG.com. Where else? I was surprised to see this getting top 8 at a big Pokemon tournament, and especially at such an important one. Late in the season, you get a bunch of people playing sillier decks going, I've already got my invite, I'm going to play something which I find fun. But early in the season, people are like, this is my chance to go and get some extra points to really start my journey to Worlds 2019. It's where people often bring out their best decks. And I was delighted to see this doing so well. So you know the deal, ladies and gentlemen. Tell me your thoughts in this deck in the comment section. Go nuts, but be nice. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at Oasi, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all of that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves. Until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.